Creative supply chain is the analogy that Taylor Holiday used a while ago about how creative work ought to happen for your Meta Ads account, that you should think about creative output. If you want to produce great creative at scale for your Meta Ads account and really for any kind of creative work you're doing, you need to think about your creative output as a supply chain with a bunch of individual parts that all require a bunch of effort to get more efficiency across the supply chain. That's how you create more ads faster and better all the time. I have said that a lot of times in this podcast. You've heard that kind of idea from a number of people. So today on the show, what I want to do is talk about the details of the supply chain, the mechanics of the supply chain. And so we're doing that with Patrick Adu, my business partner and COO at AJF Growth, who's been a huge part of that process for us, the critical part, and special guest, AC Gardner, the CEO of Behind the Scenes Studio, which is a critical part of our process as well. AC and Patrick represent together the creative supply chain. They represent the reason that AJF Growth can grow despite my massive limitations in this kind of skills and thinking. So this is going to be a really good episode to talk about how people and technology and AI come together to create a bunch of ads that work at scale. Not just what kind of ads work strategy and script-wise, but like, how do you actually turn those ideas into a whole bunch of ads fast at scale that are really good and that really perform? I will not delay it anymore. Let's get into it with Patrick Adu and AC Gardner to talk about how to build your creative supply chain.
Thank you, Patrick. And thank you, Andrew, for having me here.
Yes, AC, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This is the first time you've been on the show, right?
I think it's the first time to do
Yeah.
podcast guesting ever.
Really? Oh my goodness. Everybody, go get AC on your podcast. She's the best. Patrick, I'm going to wait to intro you much more because people know who you are and who cares, really.
Yeah, forget me.
No, AC, let's talk just for a second. You run Behind the Scenes Studio. Behind the Scenes Studio is, I always say, like a design and edit agency based in the Philippines, helping brands specifically with their ads. You are from the Philippines originally. You live in Colorado now.
Yes.
So yeah. So, okay. So what I want to start with here is like a little bit, I want to kind of get right into this creative supply chain thing and just talk a little bit about like what the different elements of this are. And the way I want to do that is by talking about first what happens in our process, which is like somebody has an idea. Okay. We build our whole process around the message. Let's say I'm the growth strategist for a brand. I'm like, okay, this message is working in the ad account. Patrick, I want to send it to you kind of first, basically, to say like, what do we do as the very first step in this process before it ever touches a human? What do we do to turn that message into an ad?
So if we start with where the growth strategist identifies what the message is and the ads he wants to make, then the next step is he or she puts together a bunch of notes in our creative supply chain that basically just kind of a long form, just running list, brain dump of all the messages he wants to focus on that week and the general idea of ad formats that want to be focused on. So then our creative strategist takes those notes, which are in Notion, and plugs them into our Prometheus tool, which right now lives inside of Claude. It says, hey, here are the notes from the growth strategist. Let's go turn this into a brand plan. And so our brand plan is a basically long Notion document that has a bunch of tables in it and lists out in great detail, before we go actually do any work, hey, these are all the ads we're going to make. These are the messages of the ads. These are the formats, the frameworks, the influencers we're going to use to film them, et cetera, all the details of the ads that we're going to make that week. So we do this every week. It's our weekly brand plan. And that's kind of step one before we go actually make any ads.
And so that whole brand plan is written in part. The reason we can put that much detail together without getting lost in the grunt work is because Prometheus doesn't just help us write ads. Like I've sometimes referred to it as an AI co-writer, but that's really underselling what it is, because what it actually does is helps you form the message, we actually have other sort of connected tools to Prometheus to like identify messages in existing ads if we want to go expand on those, etc. And then it turns those into a detailed brief for a designer or editor, which shows up in the brand plan. Is there anything else you want to say about sort of that side of things? What things we include in that brief? Why that matters for building a creative supply chain?
Yeah, I'll say why it matters. And it's because we really need to focus every week on like taking a step back. Like I basically wanted to force our strategists into really taking a step back and going, what is it we need to actually do this week? Rather than just just kind of getting in the execution mindset and just, hey, let's go make a bunch of ads. What ads feel good? Okay, we got to step back and make a plan for what we're going to do this week. And this was really, I think, a missing piece that we had before. Like, it's not like we weren't planning, but we weren't doing it robust enough to go, here's our production capacity. Here's what we think we can get done this week. Here are the brand's priorities. And like, let's go make a plan before we actually go do that. So at first, when I made this step in the process, I was concerned it was a little more human kind of interactive. And I was concerned I was like forcing the growth strategist or the creative strategist to do too much. And like, it would really slow them down and it would be a slog and it'd make them hate their job. But by eventually we got basically Prometheus to write it for us. Obviously with the growth strategist involvement, that it's not, I don't think, you could tell me, Andrew, I don't think it's a slog anymore. I think it's probably an enjoyable part of the process that helps you orient yourself at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, it's the opposite, because I think this whole process it's the opposite of a slog. The whole process starts with this idea of like, well, what ads should we make? And it's sneaky how important that is if you want to build a creative supply chain to like solve that part of the problem. Because otherwise, and I think this happens a lot in creative work, otherwise what you end up with is a bunch of creative people with like, whether they're writers or designers or whatever, with a completely blank canvas. And that's the worst place to be. It's like if somebody asks me to come to a conference and they say like, hey, we want you to speak, speak on anything you want. It's like, we trust you. We trust you. You know e-commerce really well. Speak on whatever topic you think is good. It's like, well, I mean, I can do that, but actually, like, there's so much to talk about growing e-commerce businesses that if you give me that blank of a canvas, then it's really hard for me to know where to start. I need to know who am I talking to and what is going to resonate with them and what's the state of, and where is my best expertise and what am I well positioned to do? What can I support with assets and like visual, whatever. What stories can I share?
That's a great
all
analogy.
those things. So being able to kind of start to narrow that, and what the brand plan, and this is where AI is so helpful. AI is so good at taking a bunch of information and organizing it so that we can then like go, okay, this is now going to narrow the scope of all of that kind of work and do that. So then that work then gets over to the creative, to our creative strategist, who actually goes towards as the lead of the execution. And that creative strategist for us is somebody provided by BTS, built in the Philippines. And this is where like people should know that at this point in the process, a lot of the takeover happens all with Filipino talents because they are so good, and because what you have built, AC, is like an incredible extension of our team and will continue to do. So AC, talk about sort of like a little bit of sort of how we're organizing that team, who's gonna get that brand plan from there, and who are all of the different parts, because I think there's probably more here than people would think. Like, if I say design and edit studio, it sounds like what you have is just a bunch of graphic designers and editors, but there's a bunch more going on there than that. Can you describe sort of what our team structure is looking like and what you're providing with us and our clients, and how many people are touching all of this creative?
Definitely. I think one thing that I'm super appreciative working with you as our client, is because you're very clear about the brief that you're giving to us. I always say garbage in, garbage out. And if you're not feeding the artist with the right inspiration, with the right brief, then it's so hard for them to design. It's just like that black canvas will be very different from your vision. So the touch points are, you have your creative strategist, but if you do work with us, and then our account manager is actually super within your team, ingrained in your team, you have the account manager who reviews everything and anything that the files are accessible or the fields complete. What are the things that are needed? And the creative strategist reviews that and understand what will be done to create from the brand plan that you guys have provided. And from there is the touch points with, is it going to be with a designer for the stills and graphics? And sometimes multimedia is within stills or graphics. And then you have the video editing team. And then from that video editing team, they create that, but you still have another layer of quality assurance. And that quality assurance reviews three things. Number one, technical, pixels, alignments, colors, here and that, how sharp is it, and the likes. Number two, after technical, messaging. And after messaging, are you following that from the brief in itself? And third, from the eye of a customer. How is this? Usually the third quality assurance is your account manager, because she is a step behind or a step
Yeah.
outside the process, is this
Yeah.
something that a customer will click? So it's
Yeah.
just, and then from there, it goes back that if the client has a feedback from the account manager and creative strategist, then it goes back again to that loop of who of which asset are you
Yeah.
working it on? You're
So we
working
go
it on.
creative strategist turns the brief working with AI with Prometheus for us into actual ad copy. Then you take copy and Prometheus also helps spit out some little edit notes here and there that the creative strategist can mess with and say, we want, this is the ideal kind of shot here, something like that. And that creative strategist is doing a mix of sort of editing Prometheus, a little bit of writing, a little bit of extra direction from all that kind of stuff, making sure everything is going right. That creative strategist hands it off before they go to a designer or editor. That's moved on a board, all in Notion, right? So then that person is all there, so you can see each individual ad. That then goes to somebody whose job it is to like dole that out to the right person on the team, right? There's like a project manager in there somewhere. AC, is that right?
There is a project manager somewhere in there, yes, to review everything and anything in between the handoff. And definitely, thank you for calling that out. Notion board handles that, and then it goes straight to the designer and the editor. So it's
Okay.
just, yes, the project manager, but project manager oversees that it's moving. It is moving. There's no delay because sometimes, yes, AI can do it. Everything is automated, but you just have another eye to ensure that things are moving.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So creative strategist, designer, editor, QA happening somewhere in there. There's so many little things. Another thing people misunderstand is like there's like just little like copy treatments that we want and design specifications about sort of like safe zones for meta ads or something like that that come into play. There's something about making sure that like for some brands there's like claims that we want to avoid making and things like that. There's like all of these things can get missed at different times, and so there's sort of QA happening, and then it goes back out to the client for a review process. Did we catch everything in there, AC?
Yes, we did.
Great. Okay, so where does this break on your side, AC? I'm curious, when you see clients struggling, you called out one problem there. You said like sometimes briefs aren't detailed enough. Is that like a common thing you see and a reason that people have a hard time like sort of generating good quality creative scales, that the briefs are just not clear enough?
Oh, super. Because sometimes you have clients wherein you have the creative freedom. You have the creative freedom, go take a stab. All right. And then you create it. And then when they saw it, it's just like, no, not really. I want a more polished look. Oh, no, not really. I wanted more organic and here and there. So it's very, very important for us to know. Well, first of all, do you want it to be native? Do you want it to be a before and after? Do you want to be a call out for benefits? Do you want it to be an aspirational, polished, or what direction and what emotion do you want it to evoke to your customers when they're doing that? And sometimes it's just like when you say you have the creative freedom, that is similar to that black canvas that's just like it can go anywhere and everywhere, and you'll be surprised that actually they know what they want the moment they see a sample.
I have had this conversation with a lot of clients. I think it's a very common problem. Patrick, I'm actually curious if you ever got this feedback when you ran a brand, or if you ever ran into this, where you say to somebody on the creative side of things, like, hey, yeah, I trust you. You can do what you want. But then it comes back and you say like, oh, that doesn't meet brand standards or something like that. And I think this is actually a really big deal, especially with working with overseas talent. So two things happen. First of all, every creative relationship I've ever seen takes some time. One of the things that can go wrong is that like 2 or 3 months into this process, you start handing a client creative, or let's say 2-3 weeks into this process, you start handing a client creative and they go, you guys just are not getting it. You're not, this is not meeting the kind of things that we would do. We would never post that kind of creative. And they get really discouraged and disappointed. And they even will start saying, giving feedback, you guys just aren't good enough or whatever. And I always stop people when that happens and say, hold on. What I need you to do is get as specific. When you say this doesn't meet brand standards, I need you to be as specific as you possibly can. Are there words that we used that you wouldn't use? Is it a design style? Is it an edit treatment or whatever? And I am telling you, so much of the time, the problem, even insofar as it is a problem, like the problem is on the brand's side. And it can be solved as long as you can just have a feedback loop. And problem is sometimes even the wrong word. It's not even really a problem. It's just a matter of like, it just takes some time. It just takes a few rounds of feedback in those early days, and then everybody kind of gets it. And then I think the thing that sometimes happens is, particularly with overseas talent, people will kind of come into it and go like, overseas equals not as good as the US. That's kind of like this preconceived notion people have. And so then when something comes back that doesn't meet their standards, they immediately equate it to that. I don't know if I have ever seen a video editor from the Philippines be able to accomplish this. I don't know, this designer who's in Eastern Europe or whatever, like they're just not as good, And it's like, wait a minute. I have seen a lot of work from Filipino designers and editors that has been extremely good. And I know the problem is not that they can't edit a video. It's just that it's just a creative relationship. You have to give time. And so much of this, which comes back to you at the process level, so much of this creative problem comes in at the level of briefing, clarity of expectations, even a layer before that for brands. Like a lot of brands just need to do more work to say, like, what are my brand standards? Are my brand standards actually just a few ideas that live in my head as the founder, which is actually what a lot of brands, like quote unquote brand standards, are. They're not really brand standards at all. But this is where like the detail kind of work of getting clear about that, really, really matters. Patrick, did you experience this on the brand side? Do you remember this back and forth, or was that not really something you struggled with?
I mean, I don't remember the back and forth. I'm sure plenty of agencies that work for me felt it, but I can I can raise my hand and say guilty that the brand standards were whatever lived in my head, Yeah. By the way, at that moment in time, that may have been different from the last time we spoke. And so I actually see this as a really important function that we provide through our services. Is we sit down and we define, okay, here's what we think the brand standards are, and we're going to go execute to those. And I think that's a really important thing we do, which is like really try hard to nail them down in a way that maybe the client doesn't even understand or know or have any idea of. So yeah, I can completely relate to that on the brand side and on the agency side.
And I think one thing to add there is that it's super important, aside from the briefs, to knowing what are your aspirational brands. Because yes, they have a brand style guide, but they have their personal bias of what kind of ads they personally like. And when they personally like it, it's just like sometimes it's not aligned with their brand style guide. And then it's like that's why it's so important when you ask them, and we ask the clients, what are your aspirational brands? What are the brands that also your competitors are doing? And what are the ads that you really don't like? You just don't like it. So that you already have what's good and what's not, and you have some guardrails right there.
Yeah. And the truth is that the more people you have touching, like the path to creating scale here is getting a larger team doing more work, like in terms of scaled out. At some point, no matter how much AI helps, it's not doing all of the creative work for you. And so if you want to create a lot of output, and this even includes if you want to add additional agencies beyond BTS or beyond AGF Growth or something like that, which I encourage for some of our clients. Yes, get more agencies involved, get something like that. The more people are touching your creative work, the better you have to be about clarifying these things in written, documented form that actually travels through all of the organizations. Otherwise, it will never satisfy you. You'll never get people being able to operate on their own. And that's the thing you need. The thing you need is a bunch of smart people using their talent and deploying it into your business at all of these different levels: design, edits, writing, briefing, all of these different things. And so you've got to get clear about that stuff for any of this stuff to work. If you are thinking about hiring in the Philippines as quote unquote cheap labor, or if you think about hiring in the Philippines as $5 an hour virtual assistants and that's it, you are badly missing out on the opportunity of what that country of some 90 million people can bring to your business. There are amazing employees across the Philippines who are ready to do great work in your e-commerce business, who you can hire from the top of hiring markets in the Philippines, and More Staffing can get you access to them specifically for your e-commerce business. The reason More Staffing can do that is because More, which is a sister company, by the way, of Behind the Scenes Studio, whose CEO, AC Gardner, is on this episode, okay? More was built off of a US-based e-commerce business, and they built a whole bunch, that business originally built a whole bunch of their team in the Philippines. They did great work there, and that opened the eyes of a combination of Moore's founders in the Philippines and in the US to say, we should bring this same skill set to a bunch of different e-commerce businesses. If you know me, you know that I love the beauty of e-commerce businesses scaling with a very low OpEx as a percentage of revenue. And one of the ways you can lean into that more is not only to be disciplined about how much you hire, but also to hire at lower rates by hiring in the Philippines. And what I mean by lower rates is not underpaying people and not just $5 an hour assistants. What I mean is going and hiring great manager, director, executive level talent in your business across supply chain, across operations, across advertising, graphic design, video editing, all of it find those people and be able to go get really, really good quality people at a much lower price than it would cost to acquire those, to get those same people to work in your business in the US. That's what I mean. So More Staffing can connect you to those people. They're really awesome. I am building all of my businesses with help from More Staffing. I think you should do the same thing. Go to morestaffing.co/AF, morestaffing.co/AF. Talk to them about what is possible in your business today. I want to actually talk about another element of this, which is the idea of like templatization and like sort of format libraries. So I just looked. We have right now in our format library, Patrick, we have 18 different formats. Now that kind of undersells the true number of different kinds of ads that we have, but they're just like a bunch of styles, because we actually have within those formats different copy framing and storytelling devices and stuff like that. You know, long form explainer is one of those. I mean, long form explainer is actually like a million different things, right? So like, but those million things are defined right now. There's probably, you know, 10 or 15 different versions of long form explainers that we sort of use within that framework. Can you talk a little bit about, start with you, Patrick, and then I want to kick this to you as well, AC. Can you talk about a little bit about sort of the building of a format library and what role that plays in the process?
Yeah, well, it really started with us going, okay, how do we train Prometheus on what these formats are? And that's where it started, because Prometheus needs to know what format he's creating ads in before he's going to brief them or script them. So that's where it started. And then it turned into, oh, well, now we got to really clearly communicate to our editors what's expected when it comes to when we're asking them to do this format. So I mean, it all makes complete sense and sounds kind of simple saying it out loud, but I think one of the unique things we've done is we've made it a critical part of our workflow that like every single ad we make links back to a format in our library that you mentioned and or a framework in our library that you mentioned. And I don't know, I think that's really unique. And by the way, you're always adding new formats, which I think is really fantastic. We basically nailed the workflow to where it's easy. It's like, you know, it's almost like this where we go, hey, that's a new ad we want to make, upload it to Prometheus, and now basically, you know, the team isn't fully trained on it, but they know how to get trained on it when they're briefed. So anyways, I don't know if that answers.
Just to give people a sense of what I mean by format here, I'm just going to read some names of some of our formats that we use, and I won't even show any examples of them because it's always hard with with other brands and stuff that we don't necessarily have permission to show. But I think people will hear what I mean. So there's like the long form explainer, like I said. There's also the mid form and short form explainer. There's the standard UGC video. There's the social comment overlay video. There's the socially native still long form. There's the socially native still short form. There's the pretty text only still. There's the status update. There's like all of these different, and those are all referencing things. And then each one of those has a Notion card associated with it, with a positive example of why it works, with a bunch of do's and don'ts, and all of these things, so that any designer or editor can do that. And you mentioned, Patrick, that I'm kind of adding new ones. This is actually kind of one of the things I see as a main job of mine, as a sort of like strategic lead at AJF Growth. Is it's like I am a hunter in the jungle, combing through the Amazon of Instagram, and looking to try to spot and name new species of ads and identify them, genus and species. I'm looking for the genus and species, and I'm trying to describe it and say, oh, a pretty text only still has these features and these characteristics. And I should come up with a little Latin name for all of these, Patrick. But yeah, that's the way I think about it. And then I want to name it and identify it, and then pass it to Patrick and say, here's what I think makes this good and bad, and pull that in. And I actually think it matters a lot. And then I want to keep getting other people from my team doing this who are going to have very different Instagram feeds than me. I actually had a friend at CTC who had a separate, like, sort of like kind of burner Instagram account, but it really wasn't a burner account the way people mean it. It was just a separate thing where he registered himself as a female of a very different age than he was, and then started following a bunch of accounts just entirely to try to get that algorithm in that account to give him different kinds of content that he got on his main account, so that he could do this same kind of work, you know? And I think that's like an important part of this as well. What were you say, Patrick?
Well, I think this is a really fascinating topic. Like, basically what you're saying is we approach creative from first principles, and it's completely different from how, like, I used to approach things when I was a brand owner, or I would see my team do it, and what I'm constantly seeing in my X feed, which is new, like, tools that allow you to go copy a competitor's ad and like make it in your style. We always used to, at my old brand, we'd sit around going, hey, I saw this ad. Let's go make an ad like this one from this person. Like,
right.
Every week,
brand
like,
does this.
I saw
Every
this
brand
ad.
does this.
Yeah, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but we were chasing what the other brand was doing rather than reasoning from first principles, which is, hey, I saw this ad. What is it about this ad that makes it a really good ad? And breaking it down into what you're doing, which is a format. Okay, well, this is a, pretty text only still, and so now we're going to templatize that format instead of like every week chasing some other brand's ad. We're going, oh, that's actually a great ad. I'm going to steal that one. And we're kind of pulling the framework and we're putting it in the library. So we're not doing this like, we're going to just copy other ads all the time. We're like ingesting them into the matrix and like, oh, I know Kung Fu now. And
trying to get very clear about what we like about the ad. And by the way, often they are not actually ads; they're organic posts that I just see a format. And what I'm looking for when I look for those is formats that are easily replicable. So if it's a Nike video, like I'm not sending it to this because I just know we're not going to be able to make that. But I'm looking for things that are different than other stuff we have that we could replicate really, really easily. And that would be like a simple part of that, because the more of those we can do, then the more our designers and editors can work within constraints, like I said, and they don't have a blank canvas. And then they can say, it's not just a script and then like go make it. It's like, okay, how can we do it within these kinds of things and try to give as much clarity as possible? The net effect of that over time also is the expansion of creative variety in the account, because the more of these kinds of things you can create, the more you can do this. And every one of those, really, the format is just the clothing on the ad. Like this analogy is breaking really fast, but like the person is the message, right? The main thing that you're bringing along, but then you can put that message in a bunch of different clothes, and the different clothes are the different formats, right? And so the message is still the thing that we start with. That's the true first principle. But then by adding these formats, and what that allows us to do, because the point here is creative supply chain, is to then hand those to designers and editors and allow them to work quickly, because now they know when we say do this, theoretically they can move that fast. So AC, I want to kick back to you.
Yeah.
When we send over these different formats, can you just talk at all about sort of, first of all, I'm like anything you have to say about sort of how that allows designers and editors to work. But secondly, I'm also curious. We've actually never talked about this, and so there's no right answer here. I'm happy to do this or not. How many of those you're stealing for non-AJF growth clients and using elsewhere? I hope the answer is a lot, for the record. I hope you're doing this all the time. Okay, great, good. I want you to.
A lot.
Good,
and I think one thing is that it's like, if we're using the creative supply chain, right? It's like the formats are like the molds. It's like you have different molds that you can use. Variety of colors.
That's such a good analogy.
It's just like you have different molds that when the designer is thinking about it, oh, I know exactly. These are media press design, native ads, comparison ads are here and there. It allows them to envision beyond that mold. That not only do they have to think about what kind of format is this to begin with, you already have the format that they can expand the idea from. So that is super important for us. And I think more than anything, when the team sees the format, it's super, super helpful. They have the mold and they have the lens to look that ad from, and it makes the creation faster because you already have guardrails for them.
And you just said the magic words, right? Which is faster, because that's the point of working on the supply chain. The point of the supply chain is that you take formats that you think work, so they have to be good. The point isn't just fast, and the point is not just cheap, but it has to be good. And so you have to take formats that work, and you have to have a way to isolate good messages. But when you do that, now the mold allows you to go faster and allows you to create more output. And what we actually do a lot of is, instead of iterating individual concepts, right, we'll take one of these formats with one message, and we don't just change the hook on the message. We redesign it 3 different ways. So it'll be like within one format, but it'll be different visuals, different copy, because we have the AI tool that can help write a lot of copy fast. And now you've got 2 or 3 versions of the concept, and it's like quote unquote versions, but it's really more than iterations. It's like different colors, different core imagery, different copy, all around the same message within the same format. And again, that allows you to create variety at scale, so that you could take one concept and actually create variety within that, and then Meta doesn't cohort your ads and sort of, all those kinds of things. And so now you create a bunch more volume. Go ahead,
And I
AC.
think that is one thing that is super important for every artist and editors is this 70% different from the other. Because we have that rule that Andromeda, if it's less than
Yes.
70%, it will be cohorted as one. So
Yes.
they already have that layer also that when they do their initial QA, is the 70% different from the other. And
Yeah.
then if it's not, okay, this won't pass. They already have that lens to review from.
Yeah, that's right, and that's part of the deal here, right? Is that as many people have pointed out, including Meta themselves, if ads look too similar, its internal system will not view them as different ads. And so, if the ads are too similar, this is the reason we got away from iterations, because if the ads are too similar seeming, Meta will not even recognize them as different ads, and therefore your work of iterating is literally useless. Meta will just sort of suppress one of them randomly. It's not making an educated choice; it just randomly suppresses one of the ads. So yes, you have to find a way, which creates a problem for the creative supply chain, right? Because now you have to create a high volume, but also a bunch of distinction, a bunch of variety within that volume. It's a lot easier to create a high volume if you can just change the hook 6 times, or change the headline on the still image 6 times. That's really fast, and you can make hundreds of ads. I made an episode a long time ago of the podcast called like how I turn one idea into 300 ads, and
I
I
love that.
think I deleted it at some point. I think I took it down because it's no longer relevant.
Probably.
And also, don't worry, nobody was watching or listening to it anymore. Anyways, it was really old. But for a while, I believed in it, and there's still some core principles there. But eventually, it was like, actually, this doesn't work this way anymore. So that the supply chain has to allow designers and editors to be able to move quickly within formats they know and have different approaches. What were you going to say, AC?
So it's like because the people are trained with the supply chain mindset that most ad companies or ad agencies are also handled by designers themselves. But I think what makes BTS different is because of this creative supply chain. I have supply chain background. So whenever I discuss it with them to
Huh.
imagine like fast moving consumer goods, you have a shampoo as your number one as your umbrella, then you have different SKUs of different formats and different um packaging, different color, different flavors, different scents, different this, but they know that they're working for a shampoo. Similarly for ours, it's like they have a one messaging with different flavors, different scents, different packaging, different sizes, different this, that really makes them think about one idea into multiple aspects,
Yep.
and then with different molds that you can ship it faster and volume and a
Yeah.
lot.
New sponsor, and it's one I'm super excited about, WasteNot.io. A long time ago, Cody Plofker tweeted that he had finally gotten exclusions to work on meta ads. If you've tried to set up your exclusions, you probably know, especially if you have a lot of repeat revenue in your business, that no matter how much you use Klaviyo lists and the Klaviyo meta sync, no matter how much you use even Shopify audiences, you use pixel audiences, whatever you do, there are still existing customers who make it through your exclusions and leak into your ads. And when you're trying to run prospecting ads with different economics than your retention ads, it's so frustrating because some amount of your spend is always going towards retention efforts because you're targeting existing customers, even when you're not trying to, even when you're trying to exclude them. Everybody's experienced this problem on Meta, and for that matter, across other ad platforms as well. And WasteNot has solved it. And the reason I can tell you that is that first, when I saw Cody's tweet about how he maybe solved it for Jones Road, I asked him about it. And I started trying this new thing called WasteNot. And when I saw WasteNot was the answer, I went and installed it for a client of mine that has a whole bunch of existing customer revenue. And after months upon months of just accepting the fact that some 15% of the purchases that we were driving from our ads were from existing customers, no matter how much we did exclusions, this solved it almost completely. By every possible measure that I could see, this solved it completely. We measured this down to the UTM last click basis. I've seen other people measure it with third-party attribution tools, with new to brand customers, etc. Materially more spend was going to new customers and to people who had not actually bought from the brand before after installing WasteNot, because WasteNot allows you with their software to actually exclude existing customers from your ad targeting campaigns. That is the promise of what WasteNot allows you to do. They allow you to do it across platforms, and you should check it out for yourself. If you've tried very hard to get exclusions to work properly in your business, you should go to wastenot.io, look into it. I'm telling you, it worked for me. I know it beyond a shadow of a doubt. I think it will work for you as well. Go check it out today. Wastenot.io, WASTE not.io. The link for that is in the show notes as well. Go check it out today. Do the designers and editors AC give any feedback ever that they don't like feeling that constrained? Like, because this is something I worry about sometimes with creative people is like, are they feeling like, this is boring and repetitive work, like working on an assembly line or something like that? Do you ever get that?
So far, no. And I think
Hmm.
because they know that they need to be supported with that volume because the name of the game is velocity,
Yeah.
speed, and volume. And some clients don't have Prometheus because it's like we don't have Prometheus for everybody
Yeah.
else. So we use AdNova. With
Uh-huh.
AdNova.ai is that they see the themes, they see the ad spend and the likes that when a designer, all designers by the way in BTS know how to read the numbers. What's getting the ad spend? What is getting the what ROAS is this? What is it's like the analytics from Meta is included in AdNova that they can see. It's like, oh, it's not getting the ad spend. So it's just like,
Yeah.
it's not that it's not good. It's just like, well, it does not pass with the algorithm in Meta, things like that. So to them, even if it's like boring, they know that they are competing not only with the design or pretty designs, they know there's another math that has to pass that ad that they
Yeah.
it's either you become friends with it or you're gonna repel it.
Mm.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
far so
It's
good.
great. I want to switch over a little bit towards what metrics we're using now to sort of think about measuring the supply chain and all of that. I did an episode not that long ago about my favorite creative metric. By the way, I also wanted to mention I'm going to link an episode I recently did about sort of creative formatting, this idea of like a template library. It's a shorter episode, especially by the standards of HF or of the End Affairs podcast, which often is arguably verbose. But it's a short episode I did about the problem of creative FOMO, which I actually think is one of the things that really holds people back from creative. Is that like one thing I love about the template library idea is it allows you to not only have some constraints in the creative process, but it also allows you to get better at some things by doing them more. So by sort of limiting the number of things you're working on, you go like, oh, we're getting now like I have editors who just pump out 2 and 3 minute long form explainer videos, 5 minute videos even, and they are great every time because now they've made those formats within these certain things. They know what we're looking for on hooks and all stuff every time, and because they've had this ability to effort this kind of style, or again, a whole bunch of these different formats. So by replicating this format over and over, seeing what works, seeing what spends, etc., you actually get better at it. And if you are constantly doing the thing Patrick described earlier, which is looking at all these ads that are out there and going like, oh, I want to copy this brand's thing or whatever, you're actually never going to develop that skill set within a lower within sort of some formats that you can really do well. So anyway, I put a whole episode into that. You should listen. You should watch that. I think it's sort of a sneaky important part of the creative process is sort of resisting FOMO. But I want to head over to sort of the metrics. I did another episode about FPAR, this metric that I love, first pass approval rate. The idea that like one of the things that really clogs up creative machines is approvals and revisions. And so if you can increase your first pass approval rate, you're likely to experience the value of that at the level of ad spend going up because you're going to get more ads through the machine faster by having less revisions. So I'm just curious, AC, for you to talk about sort of where the clogs in the machine are and what you're doing to measure that on the people side to sort of unclog the supply chain.
Definitely. So one of the things is that I have mentioned earlier that our artists are knowledgeable with metrics of their thumbs up, their spend, their ROAS, their click to purchase and the likes, because they need to know because they have to increase their FPAR or the first pass approval rate. From their first pass approval rate at any given point of time, each designer, they know that it has to be at least 90%. They only have a room for 10% revision rate. That is a big KPI for all designer across the board. So you have your first pass approval rate and then the client approval rate. So what are those? So every designer has a dashboard in terms of seeing what's their utilization, and then from the utilization, what is the complexity? Is it high, medium, low? And then from there too, what is your FPAR? If your FPAR is low, then you check where is it breaking? Is it because of you as a designer, Miss it's because we missed this. We didn't have the assets yet. We did not have the right inspirations. We did not have a clear brief. So it's just like usually when your FPAR is low, it's not because the designer is not good enough. It's just that we didn't have the right brief to start it with.
Do you know what our FPAR is as AJF Growth, like, or how ours compare to your other clients? I'm like, you don't have to have the exact number across the board, but are we doing well at this AC, or do we need to get better here?
I think our FPAR when we started was really low. Our FPAR was really low in the first 3 months. I know
Was that
that.
because of me?
It
Did
is
I break it?
because we're learning the brand. And
Yeah.
that's why
Okay.
when we are onboarding, I cannot get a client that, okay, we have to do 10,000 ads
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
The first month will always be 54 ads. 54
Huh.
ads. And we need to have an FPAR of 90% from there. Our FPAR with you right now is at least 90%
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we know already what you want, what you don't want. And with Prometheus, it's very, very clear.
Yeah.
But for other clients to start, FPAR passing grade is 80%, but has to be higher than that after a while,
Yeah.
after
Yeah.
2 months of onboarding.
And do you think that's because of the details that Prometheus provides? That, like, essentially there's so much clarity at the brief level? Is that the main thing that's happening there, or is it about longer term client relationships? Like,
I
yeah,
think it's
I'm
both.
just curious. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's both because sometimes because the FPAR increases when your brief is clear and when your feedback is clear. And over time, as a client and as a vendor, is that you will realize through the ways of how to provide feedback that will click the designer. So
Yeah.
it's just like, yes, it is client relationship and brief in the very beginning. So it's
Mm.
just like from yeah, whatever path.
Patrick, yeah. Patrick, on our side of things at AJF Growth, with what we're building, whether it's Notion boards or Prometheus or whatever else, what am I not thinking of that you have built or that has been an important part, as far as you see it, of like creating so much more velocity over time? I mean, it could be something as simple as our Slack approval system, which has actually been really helpful because a bunch of volume comes out now, and now we have an automated way to kick every new ad into Slack with a very clear approval process. Like, what are the other kind of elements of this that make the whole thing run smoothly that maybe I'm not thinking about?
Yeah, it's devious in its simplicity, but like I really tried to apply. I am not like a full-on operations engineer, but I have an operations engineering background with like green belt, and Lean Six Sigma. And if you don't know what any of that is, it's just like, the Japanese way of like making an automotive supply chain work quickly. And so like I came in and really did a bunch of just hacking away of like just all of this just kind of I'll just say nonsense. It's like one example, like there would be, there were there were a lot of kind of just internal practices, like, I'd find an ad concept that had been stuck for like 30 days and hadn't moved, and then people would be like, yeah, it's okay, we can leave it there. And it's like, no, we cannot leave it there. Like, the point of a supply chain is to move things through the supply chain. They cannot get stuck. Like that's like rule number one. Like,
When you
as
say
quick as
people
possible.
say that, you mean Andrew. Andrew would say
No,
that.
no.
I
No,
am people.
You're not the only one, actually. You're not the only one. You weren't the first name that came to mind. But and I'm not complaining, but it's like this kind of organizational inertia that we've gotten through, and we're just phenomenal at it now, just like cranking stuff through and automations, approval automation. So let me just say a few things. So like in our pipeline, if anything doesn't move after X number of days, it gets automatically marked dead. I'm not going to wait for you to go through and like prune everything. Once a concept is pushed to internal review, basically all you have to do is press review or approve or disapprove. This was like a huge deal to set up, but like, you, Andrew, or whatever, press approve. It gets immediately sent to Slack to the client with a link to the frame and a link to the Notion, and then they can give an emoji approval, yes or no, based on what they say. It goes back. We didn't even talk about re-edits. There's a re-edit process, that it goes back through, and basically just kind of automating and making all of these things, just kind of putting grease on the wheels to where just things aren't like just, getting stuck, or what. We don't spend time wondering like, what's the process here? What's What's the status here? So just without going into any more details, like take a real like I love the word supply chain. Take a real operations engineering approach to this pipeline and go, where are things getting stuck, and just solving every single problem one by one till you get to the point we are now where it just works. There's tons of stuff we can improve, but it's just working now.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the approval process a little bit? Because I actually think this is a sneaky clever thing. So right now, what happens when an ad goes through is designed and edited, internally approved, the creative strategist writes the ad, and then at the end of the process, the creative strategist also reviews the final output and first can give some internal approvals or not. But then let's say they say yes, okay, that's all good. Then they kick it out to a Notion card that automatically kicks into Slack, and Slack has a link to Frame, which we use, frame.io. We use that for all of those sort of like, time-stamped reviews and comments that clients want to leave about ads and videos. 30 seconds in, that's the wrong shot. Then very easily the client can say, okay, 30 seconds. And internally, we can do that too. There's approval instructions linked to every single one of them. And I think something beautiful is that within like a day or two, I don't remember, is it one day, Patrick, that the client has to approve it? And if the client doesn't approve it, then, and we tell the client this, then we're just going to push it live. And the client might not get to it. And of course, what we can always do is we can kill it. If the ad shows up in somebody's feed and they don't like it and they don't remember approving it, no problem. We just turn it off and say, here's where it was. It's labeled in Ads Manager. We can go right back to the Notion card or whatever and say, what didn't you like about it? Do you want an edit or do you want it to die or whatever? But that approval process, where there's just a Slack channel where the whole point is automations, and then there can actually be some replies and comments on any individual ad in Slack, is like really helpful. It's the best way I've ever seen anybody do this, actually. It's like really, really small thing, but it's a real part of the process when you're dealing with a bunch of people. It really helps,
Yeah. And when you have different clients, like we have one client who has never reviewed ever a single ad that we've ever put out. And we have other clients that literally go through each one by one and approve or deny them. And we love them both. Like they're both amazing clients. It's not like there's not a judgment call there, but we want to be flexible enough to be able to serve both of them. So for the one that never reviews them, we still send him the review. We say, if you want to look at it, here's a look at it. But it's going to get approved tonight at midnight anyways, automatically. So like he's never the bottleneck.
I'm tempted to say his name, but I just in case he doesn't like, but that's okay. Yeah.
Well, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Like, I don't care. You're doing great. Like, frankly, we'd love to get there with all of our clients. It's like, I don't need to look at what you're doing. I trust you.
And that is kind of what happens over time. And I'm sure you guys see this too, AC, with other clients, where like after you do the sort of give a lot of feedback early on, what that actually creates in the long run is a whole bunch of trust. And then eventually the feedback gets quicker and looser and all that kind of stuff. Being willing to put in the time on the front end is what creates that relationship in the long term, in my experience.
Yeah.
And I think that also that feedback repository, it's just like that feedback repository is within also the brief. It's like they know the guard. I keep on saying guardrails because it really allows them to see it. It really allows them to remember things, because sometimes they might forget, but that's where QA comes in as well. Whenever you do the QA, you check technical, messaging, and for customer sake. So super important for that process.
All right. This has been exactly what I wanted this conversation to be. I appreciate it so much. What I told Patrick and AC before this conversation started was, I want people to be really helped by the details of this. I want them. It's very easy to say build a creative supply chain. It's much harder to say what are all the actual details that are going into it, where are all the places it gets stuck, where are the moles breaking, all that kind of stuff. So I just try to bring some insight into that as people are trying to build this on their own. So I want that to happen. I also want you to hear how hard it is and how much work and how much time and effort is going on. This is basically AC and Patrick's full-time job. It's a large part of what both of them are doing all the time, building these things out, or somebody on on AC's team, if it's not her doing all of it. She's got to sell and all that stuff too. But all of those things are happening. So I want you to hear that, in part because I have this theory that people think about their creative work and they go like, oh man, right now I get part of this person's time. I'm going to in-house it, and I'm going to get all of somebody's time, and that's going to give me a bunch more output. And I think you're wrong. I think like you are not actually going to be able to replicate what we are accomplishing here. And what you should do instead is work with great people who do this. Because it's so much effort to get this right at every single level of the process, from strategy to the hunting through the Instagram jungles, to labeling formats, to getting those formats into an AI co-writer, and then having the AI co-writer actually be something that's an AI briefer, and then having the AI briefer publish those things into Notion, and then having the Notion. It's a huge amount of work before you even talk to all of these people. you're actually getting the humans and finding them and putting them on the team and all this kind of stuff. So you two have been insane people to work with in this process because it's such a skill set that I don't have. And so I'm so grateful for it. So a few things. First of all, you should subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. If you made it this long in this show, you're going to like my future episodes. Subscribe. Secondly, I referenced a couple of episodes as I was talking of previous things. One about FPAR, if you don't know what that is. One about sort of ad formats and all of that. Both of those are linked in the show notes. The third, if you want to work with AJF Growth on the full suite of services that we do, you can go to ajfgrowth.com and check that out. But you should also consider working with Behind the Scenes Studio if what you need is design and edit extensions of your team who can bring this process to your team. You've got media buying, you've got forecasting, you've got all the stuff that we also bring. You just want that kind of element of things. Behind the Scenes Studio is awesome, and I gladly recommend them. I recommended them to a coaching client of mine just the other day who wanted to hire us. And I said, you actually don't want us. You want BTS, because they're going to give you part of that. So go to btsstudio.co, get on a call with AC, talk about what you are looking for and what you need, and see if maybe what they offer is the right solution to you. AC, do you want to give an email address in case people just want to email you directly or something like that?
Yes, it's aycee@btsstudio.co. And we're going to link it also in the show notes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. All those links are in the show notes, as always, of course. AC, Patrick, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Patrick.
Right. See ya, AC.
See ya.
Okay, I hope that was helpful for you. Do go check out Behind the Scenes Studio at btsstudio.co. Do go to ajfgrowth.com, fill out the intake form, tell me a little bit about your business, and I would love to see if we are the right fit to work with you. And of course, email me, podcast@ajfgrowth.com. And while you're doing those things, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. I've got all kinds of great episodes coming up that you should check out and you're not going to want to miss. Big thanks to More Staffing for sponsoring this episode, morestaffing.co/AF, to get connected to incredible Filipino talent across your business, not just in the design and edit side of things, not just as an agency specifically focused on meta ads, but really across the business. They're awesome. And of course, WasteNot, new sponsor, like I mentioned, wastenot.io. Get proper exclusions in your ads. Finally, there's a way to do it. Thanks so much for watching or listening. I will see you next time.